Hi, everyone. My name is Jane Stafford, and I help oversee Gilead Sciences' COMPASS initiative to end HIV in the Southern United States. Today, in honor of National HIV Testing Day, I'm thrilled to join Cheryl Lee Ralph and 4 of our newest COMPASS partners to discuss ways we can work together to address HIV stigma in the South. Each of these organizations exemplifies the best in community-driven solutions to improve health and well-being of those impacted by HIV. For the last 3 years, Gilead Sciences COMPASS grantees have fought on the front lines of the HIV epidemic. They've reached 176,000 community members and trained nearly 13,000 people to become HIV leaders and advocates. With the help of partners like GLAAD, media stories of our grantees and their successes have been viewed by up to 30 million people across the nation. But we have work left to do. In GLAAD and Gilead's first annual State of Stigma survey, only half of Americans reported feeling knowledgeable about HIV, and nearly 90% believe that stigma still exists. As we enter our 4th year, COMPASS continues to magnify its impact. This week, we're proud to announce 29 organizations will receive over $2.8 million to combat stigma, elevate the need for increased mental health services, and continue to raise awareness about HIV. We've also expanded to 3 new states, reinforced our commitment to addressing HIV in rural communities, and built new partnerships with faith communities across the South. We're also increasing the length of grants from 12 months to 18 months, giving partners additional time and resources to make significant progress in combating HIV among disproportionately impacted communities. We're so grateful to be joined today by Cheryl Lee Ralph, who is not only an iconic actress, but an iconic activist. Her DIVA Foundation, Divinely Inspired, Victoriously Aware, has been tirelessly raising awareness of HIV and fighting stigma since 1990. Together, we can end the epidemic. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you, Jane. It's good to be here with you and everybody that is participating today. And I want everybody that is here today and who will watch this today to know that I'm very thankful for the work that Gilead and COMPASS are doing. I'm very thankful for the leadership and the organizations that we have here today, because I'm going to tell you a story. Friday, just the other day, 4 days ago, I get a call from a friend of mine, and they say to me, "Miss Ralph, I don't want to tell you this, but I have to tell you." And I said, "Okay, what is it?" They said, "My friend is dying." And I was sad. Pause. And they said, "Of AIDS." And I was like, whoa, I had to take it all in. You are telling me in 2021 that your friend of 30 years old is dying of AIDS, not coping, managing HIV, but dying of AIDS. And he has probably made his transition now. So when we begin this talk, I want you to know that the work that you're doing is very important, and especially important in times like these, when what we've been through this last year and 6 months, we know that COVID has pulled the sheets off to show us that health inequity is real, that a lot of people just aren't getting very important messages like COVID-19 is real, HIV, AIDS still exists in America. And the region of the country that is being hit hardest still right now is the South. So with this conversation, we want to just start talking about the work that is being done and how has this grant impacted your organizations and the work that you are going to be able to do for others. How about the normal anomaly? You want to go first?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ralph. So appreciative. I am Ian L. Haddock, the Executive Director of the Normal Anomaly Initiative here in Houston, Texas. The Compass Initiative has already transformed the Normal Anomaly Initiative. We were a part of some of the first cohorts in terms of learning like healing justice and learning organizational infrastructure. And it really built us to be able to apply for such a grant as the transformative grant. This grant will reshape the structure of transportation, of technology. It'll give us the ability to meet more clients through more evaluable systems. And so we're super grateful for this because our community deserves it. Our community that is impacted by HIV, the Black Queer Plus community deserves something like this here in Houston, Texas. And there's unfortunately not much here like this, but with the transformative grant, we are a part of transforming the South.
You know, it's interesting. We see that we're coming into a time where more of us are being seen as human beings. You know, in the past, you said, now in the past, it was so difficult for people of color to get help, to get assistance. Many of us were doing some of the same work as others, but for some reason, maybe it was the shade, maybe it was the color, maybe it was where we were located in these United States, but somehow now, thank God, there are companies like Gilead with Compass who are able to open their eyes and let the dollars flow to the people who need it and are doing the work. So I'm so happy for you. How about you, Tatiana? Tell us how this grant has impacted you and your work.
Good evening, afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. I would have to say this is our second round, being fortunate enough to work with Gilead Compass in the coordinating centers. The way that it has helped Trans Inclusive Group, which is our doing business as because the organization evolved in 2017, we started serving not only trans women, but we were serving the trans masculine population as well and our non-binary siblings. So we wanted to make a name that was more inclusive so everyone would be accepted. So I want to put that out there. So we do go by Trans Inclusive Group. So our goal in this particular program is to enhance our program to include trauma-informed care, to do work connected to the interrelated determinants of health when it comes to our transgender siblings. Our last grant for Gilead gave us the opportunity to build our infrastructure in our program. So after COVID happened and working with the transgender community, there are so many things that determinants and things that are happening within the transgender community. A lot of us are dealing with isolation, lack of access to care, all of these things that contribute to traumas that will potentially impact the healthcare for individuals within our community. So we wanted to build our infrastructure last year to make sure that we had the services and that we had the capability and the capacity to serve our community. So COVID happened. And when COVID happened, we're thinking like, we already had it together. So when COVID happened, we was exacerbated with calls, inundated with so many requests for services. And a lot of those services entailed mental health, entailed trauma. So we knew that it was important when this opportunity came that we had to do this. We needed to improve our infrastructure. And here's the thing, Cheryl, with our organization, you know, we're always serving, giving, making sure that all of our community members have everything that they need, right? But we don't take care of ourselves. And so it was important when I am looking and I'm looking at staff, I'm like, wait a minute now, because if we're going to be taking care of people, we have to be whole as individuals ourselves. And a lot of us within the community that are doing this work have some of these same traumas that the people that we are serving. So this opportunity was amazing. I love Gilead Compass and I work with Gilead on many other different initiatives, but I really love working with Compass because the thing is they are a learning institution. It's not about what you're doing wrong. It's like, how can we improve the capacity? How can we give you everything that you need to serve your community, to make sure that your community have all the resources that you have? And I have to put this plug in as well. Prior to me receiving funding from Gilead, this organization was the first organization to give me those grant writing skills. tools that I needed in order to apply for additional funding. So I contribute a lot of my work to Gilead Compass, sorry.
Isn't it wonderful to be seen as a whole human being? Isn't it wonderful to be valued and given the help and assistance that is truly needed from the ground up to help you build organizations that possibly have the potential to stay and continue to make a difference? Janet, what about you? How has Compass and Gilead impacted you?
It is an honor to be here. Thank you so much. And I knew I was going to be next because Sister Tatiana took all of my words, took my feelings, just right out my mouth and my heart. I wanted to like, amen you. But Compass, this is our second go round as well. What you said, and I may have to just echo it because it's true, the infrastructure that allowed us to be able to expand. Not only as the executive director of this organization and the founder, and as a Black woman living with HIV and AIDS, trying to serve our community, being the best I can, not only overseeing, the regular ongoings, but thinking about the care of my staff that has to serve community that need help themselves. By degree, I'm a mental health practitioner, but they always say you can't treat yourself. When they say how that says a fool is a person that try to treat themselves. So I knew that when we had the opportunity to talk about trauma-informed care, that a lot of our staff did not know. And I actually didn't realize that I was having those same initiatives and training. It just did not have a name. I was able to enhance the training that we had. But moreover, in our organization, we are Positively You, and we use all positive words and acronyms whenever we can. Our clients, which we call STARS, were able to be involved in our trauma-informed care. And we were able to bring them in because not only did we need the care and that uplifting, we wanted them to know that they were really cared for. Mm-hmm. And this grant allowed us that opportunity, especially during COVID, when one were the most isolated and just depressed and the loss of what they had. So it gave us that great opportunity, and I am just ever grateful that we have another opportunity to do the same thing. And Gilead, we thank you so much here at Positively You.
Thank you for that. How about you, Tijuana?
Yes, ma'am. So I am so thankful to be here. This is our first year with Gilead Compass Initiative, and I'm with the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference. We are a national organization. We're headquartered in Chicago, but we work all over the country. And specifically, we work to equip African-American churches and faith communities to address social justice issues. And through the Transformative Grant Program, we are allowed now to concentrate our efforts in the South with education and mobilization, specifically in Memphis and in Nashville. And our work is anchored in a Zulu greeting, which is Sawubonani. And Sawubonani is something that you say, and it means, I see you, I value you, you are important to me, and I respect you. And essentially, that is all our project is about, is bringing African-American faith communities away from this anti-trans, away from this invisibility of people living with HIV, away from stigma and shame, and into greater relationship with folks who are living with HIV, with folks in the LGBTQ and queer and trans community. And so we hope to build the capacity of leaders' understanding and engagement. We hope to build relationships. And so we hope to do this in partnership with churches in the South and with historically Black colleges and universities.
I'm so glad you brought up faith, faith, believing in things you can't see, believing that the impossible is possible. In this whole fight, struggle, war against HIV/AIDS, what can we do more to center faith communities to help them understand it is important to join this fight? What needs to be done? Anyone? We're talking here. Come on now, because I know somebody's got something to say about that.
I would chime in here. For me, especially working with the transgender community and a lot of LGBTQ individuals, it's kind of difficult to have those conversations about HIV before we have the conversation about who we are as individuals, right? So it makes it very difficult to work with faith-based organizations. But I think that we have to understand with faith organizations is that we have to unlearn some of those thought processes that people have. And when people think about HIV, they think negative, right? And HIV doesn't have a negative undertone. And when I'm talking about stigma, when I'm educating, this is the thing that we have to normalize. So when we get to a place to where we're normalizing HIV and that conversation, then maybe we can have that conversation with faith-based organizations. So that's the beauty. And I'm hoping with the coordinating center this year that we have the capacity to be able to expand those services to those faith-based communities. But it starts with those conversations. And what does that look like is the main concern for me, because I may go and want to have these conversations as it relates to HIV, but then they're looking and questioning who I am, my gender, my sexuality. All of these things are coming into play when we're trying to think about how do we end this epidemic that we're in. So unlearning some of those thought processes. And when you think about faith-based, you think about the spiritual part of it, right? Those beliefs, the religion behind it. And those are some of the challenges. And I'm hoping that we're going to be able to break through those barriers with this initiative.
We have to break through those barriers, especially when we think of, I always think in terms of, okay, God or great goddess there. I never think of great God or goddess pointing fingers and say, guess what? You don't belong in here because we don't deal with people like you. What do we need to do? Do we need a new church? Do we need a different church? Do people need to leave church? What do we need to do about faith-based organizations accepting all people? What do we need to do? You got to have some thoughts on it, because I know in the past there have been a lot of people who have left church because they were not accepted, created their own churches to accept everybody. But something is necessary. I see you shaking your head, Tawana. Come on now.
Amen. I honestly think a lot of us need to be quiet and make room. And that's what we've been doing at the Proctor Conference, specifically during Pride Month. We have a national prayer call. And so during Pride Month, we're inviting our queer and trans brothers and sisters to lead the prayer call. So folks all across the country are being led to the throne of grace by individuals who they have been stigmatized before. They're now hearing prayers of folks thanking God for their queerness. It's bringing them into a different relationship with the idea of gender identity. So I think a lot of times we really do need to just lift every voice. We need to hear the voices of our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. We need to be in relationship and understand who they are as a human being first, and before, just like Tatiana said, before we start advocating on their behalf.
This is so interesting because, my 31 years in the fight and struggle for all people, especially around AIDS, because for me, it started around AIDS. There was no HIV. Folks were just dropping dead of AIDS. And there used to be a time where there was a Sunday that would be recognized and everybody would go to the churches whose doors were open. What do you think is the next step? Because faith is important for people of color. Black folks still love Jesus. Black folks still love to pray. Black folks love the place to go to on Sunday. How can we get the help from that place around battling AIDS? HIV.
Jill, I was going to jump in and just say, I think we've spent a disproportionate amount of time focusing on that which divides us. Right? Faith is the place where we can find all of the things that bind us, whether it's music, it's community, it's food, it's God. And I think that part of what Gilead was trying to do was engage this really large community in saying, We need to reduce stigma, and we cannot possibly do that without engaging our faith communities. So for me personally, and I think for Gilead, that was a huge driver in working with Wake Forest in this case, adding a coordinating center to the Compass Initiative.
You know, we hear that word, stigma, stigma. Stigma is so and still huge. I am just amazed that still after 40 years of AIDS in America, the messages that have been put out, that there are still so many people who think, oh, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with those people. Oh, what is that? We still can't touch them. They're still wary. What are some of the things that we need to do that are different, that are stronger deliverances of the message that to combat stigma?
Yes, I'll take that one because I think as a person that was one of those people who didn't feel like I would be impacted years ago. Like I didn't feel like I would have that moment. And I was having unprotected sex. I was in the communities doing things. I was doing everything that you could do to contract HIV. And I didn't feel like I would be impacted, right? But the reality is, I remember when it was a CROI in 2016, there was a projection that came out and said 1 in 2 Black gay men could contract HIV within their lifetime. And I remember saying, wow, like that's me, that's who I am. And it really was, you know, PrEP really transformed my life. But aside from that, I think about that moment of like reconciling. You are doing everything that leads to the transmission of HIV, yet you don't feel attached to it. And it's because of patriarchy, right? It all comes from concepts of patriarchy. It comes from concepts of white supremacy culture. And it's this idea that masculinity and or the being adjacent to any type of white power, right? Contributes to this idea that you are safe and you are covered, right? Because that's a dirty disease. That's for people who do nasty things. But the reality is we are all impacted by HIV and all have the possibility of transmission. And so when we're talking about stigma, it's about normalizing the anomalies out there, right? It's about making people realize that you may feel different, right? You may feel like you have these specific intersections, but the reality is everybody is impacted in some way by HIV.
You said that. You also brought up something that really concerns me, because the young man that I mentioned when we first started, who lost his life this past week to AIDS, was probably just like you, thinking this has nothing to do with me. We need a stronger message. We need a different message. We need to reach people who are younger than 40 years, because the disease is now 40 years old in America. What do we need to do to reach younger people to understand that this is real? That if you are having unprotected sex and doing certain behaviors that young people do all the time, that this could be you. Any suggestions?
I think if we were to start with educating in the schools, which they don't, because we have to get to our youth at an early age to kind of start programming what that looks like. So I think as a community, I think we have to think about what that looks like when we are electing these officials and putting them in office, to kind of be able to help them understand what it looks like in regard to our community. And unfortunately, you know, HIV really, really impacts Black and brown individuals. So making sure that we have education in those communities, because if you can't educate our youth in school, sometimes that falls back on the household, right? That falls back on the parent, right? So making sure that the parents have all the little resources and the education that they need, so they can disseminate that and move that within the household, and that way the youth will be ready when he or she or they enter into society. So it starts with the normalizing. While I go back to normalizing normalizing HIV in the conversation. Because once we can get to normalizing HIV and having those conversations and being comfortable having those conversations, we'll get to that. So what does that look like for a community has always been my concern. You know, when I'm in my spaces, I'm like, we normalize that. You know, if anybody, any negative, anything that I think that is out of the way when we're discussing HIV, I'm checking it on the spot. Wherever you show out, that's where I handle you at. So we have to get to a place of normalizing, I think.
I love it. Show up, that is where I am handling you, right there. There is that saying, you have to meet people where they are. Yes, you do. So, you know, you said the fact that we need to have education around, I think it's overall sex, sexual health, and well-being, a complete, whatever you call it, course about that for young people. I just want you to know that we have been talking about this for years. And I really believe that my generation was probably the last generation that actually had health, sexual health in class before somebody said they don't need to know about that. And it got cut out. It's going to take a lot of work to get our communities, our governments to say, our children need sexual health courses. They need to know about it because, see, we can sell it to them in commercials, but then we don't want to talk to them when they get pregnant, when they have a sexually transmitted infection or a sexually transmitted disease. We don't want to talk about that either. So when I say we need something new and different, we really need something new and different from the inside out, because it seems to me that we just keep doing the same old thing over and over, and we are getting the same results. So I'm encouraged by all of you because I like what I'm hearing from you. I like that boldness of spirit, because that's what it's going to take to get some of this done. So we're talking about HIV/AIDS in the South, and the South could be south of Philadelphia. The South could be all the way down there in Atlanta. The South could be Alabama, Mississippi. And with all of you, you know, we've got Florida, we've got Texas, Memphis. What do you think it's going to take to eradicate HIV in the South? What do you think needs to be done?
This is Janet. I live in Florida, but I'm originally a New Yorker. And I was astounded by the lack of education of HIV here. I was astounded about not seeing billboards and not seeing huge AIDS war. I was astounded. I didn't know that. I probably am that generation where they stopped teaching comprehensive sex education. Sex education has to be comprehensive. And comprehensive, we don't say use a condom not to get pregnant. We use a condom not to contract HIV or an STI. We have to really go down in the nitty gritty. We have to talk about the different ways individuals have sex and be comfortable with it. We have to be comfortable if they're same sex. We have to be able to say that word without biasness within ourselves, our own internal bias that we project to others. And I think that we need a whole revolution. We need a revolution.
Yes.
We need changes. And I know that myself, in the fight, I hire younger folks. I think they're smarter, even down to my grandchild. They're smarter than us. And we have to take on, I would say that for someone like me that's older in the fight, that we have to take on the younger individuals' training and get away from our old thinking.
That's right.
I love paper, but that's not the way of the world anymore. And we
Who
have
uses paper anymore?
some people my age. So we have to be able to understand and believe and listen to some of our younger brothers and sisters that have a different approach on how we can really make this a revolution, a real revolution.
When you talk about a real revolution, I believe when I see and feel the boldness that is now very visible in young people, especially young people of color right now, there is so much, like you just said, Janet, they have not been taught, or they don't think that it has anything to do with them, you know, from HIV to AIDS to COVID. They don't believe that that's going to happen to them. And I'm seeing more and more that it is absolutely happening to them. Now, they sing about all kinds of sex. When you listen to the lyrics of some of these songs, I'm like, now, wait a minute. They know all the different ways that folks are having sex. And if you listen carefully, you will learn something too. I mean, they've got the WAP going on. They've got my neck, my back, okay, let's not go there. But they got all of that going on and they bump into it, baby. And I'm like, come on now. Why are we doing the same old thing talking to them? They're telling you out loud, this is how we do it. We don't know about you, but this is how we do it, and they are doing it. So when we talk about a revolution, I'm happy to see some of you there young. I'm happy to see you out there in your truth, living your life, because you've got to tell a dynamic story for people. And when you talk and say everybody is affected by HIV and AIDS, that is the truth, because quiet as it's kept, go into your schools. Children, something's going on. They got them warts, they got that itch, they got that little drip. They need to know how to handle that, and they're not getting the message. What are we going to do?
I think that's the beauty of data. And I think it's important that we use that. You know, when we're trying to advocate, it's important that we use that data when these individuals are contracting any STIs or contracting HIV, to be able to get people to understand what we're up against. But you said something about meeting people where they are, right? So when you're talking about these rappers, when you're talking about music, when you're talking about these entities and these platforms that the youth are using, I think we have to infiltrate those places as well. And that's the beauty of having younger people working and doing the work to be able to get in those places that we sometimes can't as older individuals, or don't have the capacity or to understand what that looks like. So we have to make the work and make the messaging appeal to them, look like something that they want to do, whatever that may looks like, you know, when they're talking about WAP. And if, you know, Cardi B is very popular within our community, and maybe having her to think about what that messaging look like to our youth. You know, you have a lot of these young women and a lot of these men that are looking up to these individuals. So maybe if we incorporate them and some of the messaging, and to make sure that they disseminate that, maybe that youth or that individual may have that aha moment when they're listening to them. So we just have to think about, when we talk about a revolution, we have to use influential people to help us in this process.
Mm-hmm. You know, it was so interesting when back in the day when it was like, let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me, you know, and that was very helpful to get young people to actually talk about sex and their sexual health and well-being. Okay, Normal Anomaly, I saw you rocking back there, and I know you've got something to say. So I need you to say it. Come on.
Yeah, I just wanted to lift up the fact that many times in doing this work, HIV is the symptom and not the disease, right? So when we think about it, like when we think about this work, we're working to end an epidemic, a disease. And so we look at it from this very linear and very blurred kind of like vision, where you have to do it in a particular way. But we're doing the work here, and we find out that the people that are most impacted by HIV, that's not their top priority. They're when we're working with Black trans women, and it is activism just stepping on the other side of the door for them. So when we're talking about like HIV, we got to get them safe first.
Yes.
When we're talking about like Black queer persons, right, or you know, Black queer masculine presenting people, they are worried about like, how am I going to eat? right?
Mm.
How am I going to, what does love look like? Is love possible for me, right? And so then when we're coming into these spaces and these public health and community health spaces, and we're saying, oh, get tested, get on PrEP, get on PEP, get on, treatment as prevention, undetectable equals untransmittable. All that may be true, but if I can't eat, if I can't get, like, what does that look like for me? And so we got to be really clear to not be treating, as we're ending the epidemic, not be treating like HIV is the disease that we're trying to fix. No, it's just a symptom. It's the symptom of my poverty. It's the symptom of my homelessness. It's the symptom of my unemployment, right?
Yes.
So that's what we got to be clear about when we're talking about a revolution, because we got to come from the right space.
Oh, now
And
that was a whole
amen. I want to give you an amen.
That was a whole word right there. Whoa. See, that's why I have faith in young people. Thank you. That's why I'm so happy that Gilead Compass is backing y'all, because see, this is what we need, a complete understanding of who we are. And we are valuable from the ground up, but this HIV/AIDS is not our only struggle, because quiet as it's kept, poverty is killing us in ways that a lot of people refuse to address, refuse to see. And for some reason, and for some of us, the poverty is not our fault. That's the way the game was set up, rigged, and we got hit by it. So I'm happy to see that y'all have some new and some very new best ways and practices for us to handle it, because one of the ways we start is just by telling the truth.
Cheryl, may I say,
Yes.
sorry, may I say that
No,
the young man that recently transitioned, he didn't transition because of AIDS. He transitioned because of everything else. The end result was his death. The whole social determinant of health, poverty, misunderstanding, being misunderstood. No one dared to love him. That's what he died of. He didn't die of AIDS. No one dies of AIDS. They die of the complications that not necessarily is medical. Not necessarily is medical. So curing HIV is not only getting tested, but loving and treating, and just really, our tagline at Positively You is doing things out of the box. If you call me in the middle of the night, I have to pull you off the street so you can eat, I've saved your life. That's saving someone's life. Not working 9 to 5 and saying, not today, I've done this already for you. That's saving someone from dying of AIDS.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Tijuana, when we talk about, faith organizations and faith ministries, do you see them as much as they used to be there, or have they become a thing of the past?
I think they're changing. And I think a lot of them have been pushed into a new world because of COVID-19. So a lot of them have a virtual presence, and a lot of them are upping their social media game. So we're seeing them, and a lot of them are reaching and stretching to get some of these youth that are in the Black Lives Matter movement, because they see the energy, they see the passion, and they want some of that. So they're changing. And I think the opportunity that we have here is to bring those churches into deeper relationship with the real issues, make them relevant. Bring the humanity back in, make room for folks. We want to see our LGBTQ brothers and sisters leading worship services. We want to hear what they have to teach us about God, what they know about God, because we have so much to learn. So I think that they're changing, and as they change, we have an opportunity to really make this a revolution.
Absolutely, absolutely. When we talk about a revolution, and you can't stop the revolution, when we talk about the revolution in a perfect world, in each of your perfect worlds, what would the fight against HIV and AIDS look like? What would it look like? What would we do that we're not doing now? What would we do differently? What would we do?
I'll go first. I think it would start with understanding. That's one. And what does understanding look like? You know, we say meet the person where they are. To me, that's just a lot of words that we read in textbooks and all that. But do you really mean that? If someone came to you dirty and needed someone, we're told that the church would accept you, but will we accept them in our organization? Will we go give them clean clothes if they needed to eat? Will we give them a hot meal? Will we really give them something to eat? Or say, here, take this card, go on and don't come back tomorrow till I open up. What does that look like? We need to treat them the way we would want to treat one of our family members. Hopefully we treat our family members well. We want to treat that person as a person and love them. I think my two words would be love and understanding, first of all.
So that would be it. In your perfect world, there would be more love, there would be more understanding, more acceptance of people just as they are. Correct?
That is correct. I forgot acceptance. Those three, yes.
There you go.
Absolutely.
What about you, Tatiana?
I would say I have to agree with Norman Alamali. I think that we have to treat the whole person. I think a perfect world for me is just treating the whole person as a human being. If we start there, we'll get to everything that you need. You know, one of our taglines with my organization is building trust and relationships. And, you know, when you build that trust and you build that relationship, the rest will follow. And I think it's important, as he mentioned earlier, just treating the whole person equally, equitably. You know, when we think about HIV and we think about resources, especially in our underserved communities, they're not there. You know, when you think about communities where you have affluent individuals, you have all of the resources. So just making sure that we have equitable resources for everyone in our community and just treating the whole person for me.
Normal anomaly, do you think it's possible? You think it's possible in a perfect world?
I do think it's possible. The words that come up for me are naked visibility. I wonder what would a world look like if we could really just be naked, both literally and figuratively, right? Like, what would it look like for me to be comfortable with my sex, sexuality, and gender? But also, like, what would it look for me to be comfortable in my emotional health, in my mental health? What would it look like for me to be comfortable in my physical health, being a fatter body? Like, what would that look like for me? And going back to like that treating the whole person, like in the perfect world, we would be naked. And we would be visible, right? We would be visible, meaning that people would see. The beauty about like transparency is that not only can people see through you, they can see themselves in you. So what would this work look like if people could see themselves in us? Because really, going back to when I said about Black trans women, when they step on the other side of the door, that's a huge thing. So that in itself is activism. So when we look at like activism and visibility in that way, then we recognize, hold on, when we're having these leadership development opportunities, really, the activism starts by stepping on the other sid of the door. It starts by showing up as your full self, even when it's difficult, even when it doesn't feel good, right? It comes from saying the things that don't sound good politically, but they feel good to your core, right? And those things may shake some things up. They may be a little disruptive. They may dismantle some structures, but that's what it's going to take. It's going to take that push and pull. So this perfect world would still be naked visibility, where we're dismantling structures and dispelling myths.
I like that. I like that. I like the whole idea. We need to dismantle some things and build back up again. I like that. And what about you, Tiwana?
Amen. So similar with that, I think the church has a lot of correcting to do with the theologies that they have given, with some of the treatment that our LGBTQ family, that our family living with HIV/AIDS has felt. So I think there needs to be some truth telling. I think that the church needs a radical moment of just recognizing the harm that it's done. And then I think that there needs to be a radical relationship. If I go back to Sawubonani, we need to go back to seeing the human in another, respecting that and valuing that above all else. But I think it starts for persons of faith specifically with truth telling, and that'll bring us into a deeper, authentic, equitable relationship.
I love everything that I have just heard. And in a perfect world, let me see. I think I love the idea of being absolutely visible. I love the idea that we would each have to stand up for our truth as human beings. I used to do some speaking and I'd say, what would the world be like if we had to walk down the street and raise our hands and say who we are? This is who I am. You know, you have some people who figure out, well, I don't like them because they're this, or I don't like them because they're that way. But then they get that jolt of truth that says, I cheat on my taxes. Liar. Adulterer. I talk about gay people, but I actually love them. What if we had to have that kind of truth? In a perfect world, we'd be able to just address so much more. But then I worry that we would still find something to dislike about somebody, and then we'd have to start all over again. So I just want to say that I'm so proud. I'm so happy for all of you with this grant process, with the work that you're going to do, because you're important. I started out saying that, and I mean it now. We have a few more minutes here, and I'd like to give each one of you the floor to just speak on something that maybe hasn't been addressed, that you think needs to be addressed, or just tell us what you want us to know about you and your organizations, please. Don't be shy.
I'm gonna go first, since I went first at the beginning. Something that I just want to lift up is I have two amazing people behind me that I just have to lift up. I am nothing without my team. My team is my community. I get a lot of chances to be in the spotlight, but they are the reason why we exist. I just wanted to lift that up because I think many times in doing this work, we forget to treat people as humans. And these humans behind me literally are the reason why I can stand so strong, because not only do I believe in them, but more importantly, they believe in me. And so I'm just grateful to have a team such as Joelle and Jordan.
Okay, Joelle, Jordan, since your leader has brought you to the forefront, you might like to share, please.
Yes, thank you so much for allowing us to have a moment to speak. And I want to say he spoke on something that's very important to me, that we are a structure, we are a unit, and we are pillars, and we're holding up this foundation together. And I think when one support starts to get a little bit weaker, the other one is strong enough to support the rest of the building. So we have the opportunity to continue to grow and learn each other. And when he spoke about earlier about being that one of two, I'm on the other side of that too. I'm an individual who's living with HIV. And I had the same type of mindset, but I got a different type of result. And learning and navigating through that, I didn't get those resources when I was inside of spaces such as school. My mother waited because she said, of course, my child is not having sex. By the time she told me about sex, I could have told her what I was doing. And so it's in spaces like that, we have to recognize and understand that when you think it's time, it's probably too late. And being in an organization where we're able to step into spaces and speak on that is allowing us to navigate that better and reach our youth, because the youth are doing more than adults have done when they were doing it at their age. So we have to be realistic and understand that those spaces are there, and stop shunning away from it, because it will come out to light, because everything in the dark comes out to the light.
Woo, that was a whole word right there.
Miss Rob, I'm Joelle. And I think one of the things when we talk about dismantling patriarchy and dismantling these systems of oppression and power, one of the things that we have to dismantle is the systems of power that create these structures of power that prevents people from actually being able to do the work, prevent people like Black women of trans experience, such as myself, from being able to get into positions of leadership that are able to help benefit the communities that we believe in, the communities that we live in, and the most marginalized communities. Ian is our executive director, he's our founder, he's our leader, but we have this unorthodox structure in a sense of we all are leaders, we all are making decisions, we all are really moving forward with this work in an impactful way. And I think that what it does is it shakes the system up, because while people believe that it's a pyramid, in actuality it's a circle, it's a sphere that's moving constantly, moving forward. And I think that just in doing this work, I think it's exciting, and I think that even though it is work, seeing how we're shaking stuff up, seeing how we're starting to dismantle that pyramid structure and ideal, it's exciting. It's exciting to move forward. And I'm just thankful for, Compass and the opportunity and the, transformative grant and the work that we're going to be doing moving forward.
All right now, come on. Yes. Come on, who wants to go next?
I'll follow up with Joelle because I want to speak to the Black trans woman experience, being the first Black trans-led organization in the state of Florida to incorporate, and what that looks like when we're talking about HIV, and we know that Black trans women are disproportionately impacted in regards to HIV. And pouring into that leadership is why I'm so thankful for Compass, because they have done just that for my organization. I went from a $10,000 budget to six-figure budget, just learning all of the things that I know through all of these initiatives through Gilead. So pouring into that work. So when we talk about doing this work, we have to think about how do we build the most marginalized communities? How do we make sure that they have the resources that they need, give them the capacity, because ultimately giving us the capacity is going to help us eradicate anything that's happening in our community. So being not only saying that you want to help eradicate, but being intentional about what that work looks like, and understanding, there's this meme where you see the little boys sitting, this one guy's on the fence and they looking across the fence and they're different sizes. I often post that and people look at it, but I don't think people really get it. They don't really understand how you have to help the most marginalized. And especially now we're in a community where we're fighting against, if I give you as a Black trans woman or you as a Black organization a penny, I got to give the other person a penny too, because if not, they're going to say that we're discriminated. But we already started at the bottom. Already started at the bottom. So thinking about what that looks like in regard to equity, I think that's important when we're doing this work. And it's important for the people that have the capacity, have the resources, have the funds to do that, be intentional and involve us in that work. Not only involve us on boots on the ground, but making sure we're at those tables when you're creating these processes, when you're determining who gets what, making sure we're at all tables, not at the table just to do the work, but the tables that make the difference.
Ooh, come on with the sermon, y'all. Come on with the sermon, you all. There was a saying back in the day, please follow the disease. Let the money follow the disease, because back in the day, the money was not following the disease. The money was not following the people of color. And we, like you said, were already at the bottom, and we were scratching and scrapping for pennies on the dollars that were given to other organizations. And when I see all of you getting this support and I hear you speak, I'm like, yes, this is how we do it. This is how we move into the future. Tijuana, I'm sorry, you were starting to say something.
I was just saying, amen, amen. I mean, I feel so grateful to be a part of this group as a first-time grantee. Our organization, of course, is grounded in the prophetic tradition of the Black Church, but we are always mindful that we don't want to continue marginalizing a group within us as a marginalized people. And what we want to really be mindful of is that as COVID-19 has a vaccine, as you said, it's been over 40 years and there is still no vaccine for HIV/AIDS. So we have seen our Black churches stand up in the midst of COVID, we have seen them pull together. We have seen them create vaccine drives. We have seen them create education, webinars, and we have seen this energy around ending COVID and getting somewhat back to normal. And so we want to use that same energy towards eradicating HIV, towards ending stigma. And we believe that we can do it. And we're thankful for the support of Compass Gilead, and we're thankful for all these wonderful grantees just to be a part of the number.
Janet, what have you got to say?
I too am very grateful for being a second go-round grantee here at Gilead with Compass. As a Black woman living with HIV that started a company, not knowing where it was going to go, I too have evolved and grown more than the belief that I ever could believe in. And I'm very grateful for that. However, I did not forget those and why I'm in the struggle. I'm here, and I say that every day. I'm here because of the people I serve. And that is my Black community of people living with HIV and AIDS, and for community all over. But as a woman, we know that women struggle real hard during this community, just getting not only vaccines, but having certain rights of being able to have a child, being able to not be discriminated if you were pregnant, having doctors and medical folks even treat women living with HIV and AIDS. So one of the part of our grant that we got is something called Common Threads that was created by Vanessa Johnson. And we do a storytelling of our lives that will help us release some of this trauma that we have, as well as going forward in educating one another. And that there, the second part of that is that we go into community, just pull it all together and try to combat stigma. So I'm proud that I have the opportunity to even follow my dream and my mission. And that is to be able to treat, like I said, be a revolutionist, to be a rainmaker in this field, because I am you and you are me.
I just want to say I'm very happy to see each of you just the way you are, living your truth, fighting this good fight. We always know that everything happens in time and for a reason. And in the beginning, you know, coming to fight this, what I always call the good fight, for the many friends that I lost as an original company member of Dreamgirls on Broadway, to stand as a young woman and see my friends just drop dead of a disease that really had no name. And when they were suffering the most, there was nobody to help them. And there was nobody that really wanted to acknowledge their pain. And even their own family would turn their backs on them. And you would think that coming through a time like that you could lose the fight, you could lose the strength to fight. But when I see you all here and I hear you talk, and I hear your education, I hear your learning, I hear your passion, I feel your desire to move forward. I see you able to stand up and look at the powers that be and say, I'm not invisible anymore, and my eyes are open now, and you are gonna have to work with me, respect me, because I am essential to this fight. So to all of you, I am Cheryl Lee Ralph, diva, divinely inspired, victoriously AIDS aware, and I love you all just the way you are, which is perfect. Thank you, GLAAD, for putting this together. Thank you, Gilead Compass, for looking at this group of people and seeing their value, seeing their worth, and making sure that they are at the table because they are essential. Thank you all and carry on.